Welcome to No Holding Back with me, Susan Estrich, the podcast where I bring you the biggest names from the worlds of media, politics, and law. We dive into unfiltered, unapologetic, and insightful conversations. I speak my mind and I encourage my guests to do the same. No topic is off limits as we dive into the issues that shape our world. Today we have a very special guest and a special friend of mine joining us. She's a true trailblazer in journalism, a sharp political analyst, and someone whose commentary has guided readers through decades of political turbulence with insight and wit, and now we really need her. I'm talking, of course, about the one and only Margaret Carlson. Now, if you're a fan of political journalism or journalism in general, you've definitely come across Margaret's work. She made history as the first woman columnist at Time magazine, where she became known for her ability to cut through the noise and get to the heart of the story. From her time at Time to her columns in the Daily Beast, Bloomberg, and beyond, Margaret's voice has been a constant in American media, offering perspective, clarity, and just the right amount of irreverence when it's needed most. In addition to her print work, she's a familiar face on TV news panels where she's never been afraid to speak her mind and call it like it is. Whether she's dissecting presidential elections, breaking down the latest political drama, or sharing behind-the-scenes stories from her remarkable career, Margaret always brings something fresh to the conversation. Margaret, thank you so much for joining me again. It is always a pleasure. I'm your biggest fan. So what's going on, Margaret? What do we do?
First, I want to book you to write my obituary. That's a
Great.
very generous.
Not for a long time, honey.
And what's going on here is almost beyond describing, because each day outdoes the last day. The only person in the world, I think, who's happy truly right now with the victory is Vladimir Putin. But here, people are, we're still slightly surprised, but I wish we were more surprised, because now it feels routine that you're going to find out something awful has happened each day. The RFK confirmation was one of the worst for me. I thought of all those characters, they'd get him just because it's going to affect every single one of us. In some way, it's going to alter our health care, who pays for it, what research gets done. He wants our milk raw. He wants our teeth rotten. He wants our vaccines not happening at the rate they're happening now. He's just going to get into every area of our life. The only thing that he might do good is get the additives out of our Cocoa Puffs. I don't see how those senators read or watched that video from Caroline Kennedy and then cast a vote for him. And
what happened, Margaret? How did that happen? Where is courage?
It stunned me that Lisa Murkowski voted for Kennedy's confirmation. She is the sturdiest, most honest person of that. The Senate, we don't even have a legislative branch as a check on the presidency now. We have one branch to check Donald Trump, and that's the courts. And I don't have all that much trust in them, because they've been stacked in different circuits, and God forbid something get to the Supreme Court that granted him immunity. What are they going to do with all of these other cases if it gets to them? I worry. I mean, we'll have a dictator if the Supreme Court behaves the way it's behaved over the last couple of years. I just can't imagine it.
What do we do? I mean, I have more faith, I guess, in the courts than most people, because I've seen the courts do their job, and so far they're standing up to him. The federal district judges are standing up to him. But what do people do? I wake up every morning and I can't bear to read the newspaper.
Everything that is in the courts now is going to be appealed. I think district court judges, even if they've been appointed by Trump, have done a fair job. But do you think that the Supreme Court, acting as it has over the last couple of years, even when Trump was in office, now when he's been given everything he's wanted in terms of immunity and he's letting everybody out of jail. He's firing everybody. I just don't see this Supreme Court agreeing with the district courts that have stood up to Trump. Do you? I mean, it's 6-3. It's
I know
six
it
three.
picks three. The only hope I have is, quite frankly, that Chief Justice Roberts doesn't want to be known as the justice who let democracy down. And he's going to have to avoid a constitutional crisis. And I don't know how you do that. You've got Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, both of whom are smart guys who don't want to be known as Trump toadies. There's at least some hope that you can get a majority to stand up on things like birthright citizenship. I mean, that's in the Constitution. How do you just do that by executive order? Whether they'll stand up on Elon Musk, I don't know. Whether they'll stand up on these freezes and cuts, I don't know. I think that John Roberts is going to want to avoid a constitutional crisis. And you've got J.D. Vance out there saying that the president should just ignore the rule of law. And that's insane.
It's insanity. And could you have pictured, even at your worst um, impression of Trump, that he would actually just go wild through Washington and destroying things? I mean, it's not as if, that Humpty Dumpty, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put him together again. The things that are being destroyed can't just instantly be put back together again. USAID, it just can't be. The trials, the cancer trials and other disease trials, when they stop, all that's gone before is lost, and your placebos and your real groups, they're gone. All of that is gone, and so we'll lose at least a year, if not more, of any research on any of the diseases that have been in progress. I mean, it goes on and on from there. There was a piece in the Washington Post, I think it was today, and it was interviews with employees, no longer employees, at different agencies that were just locked out, told to leave. And the forms that there were forms that went out, but the forms had no names in them. It just said, this goes to, and then employee's name, uh, to be, please acknowledge that you have been asked to leave on date blank. And it was just forms that hadn't even been filled out, and they were just out of a job, locked out, couldn't be there. It's shocking. And what really worries me is the people who are voluntarily resigning because of Trump's actions. The U.S. Attorney's Office in New York, all the ones who've resigned because Eric Adams has been more or less pardoned. And it goes on. This is the heart of law enforcement, just picking up and leaving. Even though, I mean, there's some that have been fired, but others just aren't staying. I don't know what's going to become. We say bureaucracy, but the bureaucracy just keeps government, the wheels running and turning.
Why is he doing this, Margaret? I mean, why is he stopping cancer protocols? Why is he stopping research? What in the MAGA agenda justifies this?
Well, he's under the impression, because he hates government, everyone hates government. He's not making that much of a distinction with what stays and what goes. You can't. The people going into Treasury, it's like a robbery. They're just going in like masked men to rob it, and there's nobody to stop them because nobody wants everyone. Can you think of one person in Washington who's not afraid of Donald Trump? Let's leave aside the court. You have more faith than I do. That's the Senate. Not really. Susan Collins talks a good game, and then she votes with Trump. Lisa Murkowski, I just don't know what happened to her. There is not one senator, Republican senator, who's willing to stand up to him. And I can't believe that they so want to be reelected that they would just throw their vote away. They would just do this to the country. It's staggering. It's
Is this because Elon Musk has so much money that I saw the Tom Tillis stories about how, Tom Tillis was threatened with a primary if he bucked Trump? I mean, that's a scary thing, but that's what's
well,
going on.
so take the primary and do the right thing. Is it get, I I don't have that much sympathy for these members when it comes to a constitutional issue like this. This is not whether you're going to build a bridge or not. This is about the country and whether there's going to be an autocrat just completely sweeping in and leveling it to the extent he wants to. I don't know that anybody stood up against him. The list of the people who stormed the Treasury, they're all just young techies. Every single one of them has been associated with Musk or one of his projects, SpaceX or one of them, in some way. And they went in there, and only one has been evicted. They're still in there. They've got your social security number, Susan. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but they have access to it. It's an amazing breach of trust on the part of uh, the now acting government to do that to the citizens of this country. They voted for him to make a dozen eggs go back to $3 instead of $5. They didn't vote for him to do this. Although I don't, has it filtered down to the people who voted for him? And I don't mean to say down, but I mean, he still has a 60% approval rating among.
How does he have a 60% approval rating? Aren't people nervous? Is it going to take
This
not
is
getting
among
your social
this is among
security
his
check?
voters. This is among his voters
Right.
that somehow they just uh, this is a subset. It's not the country, but I imagine the country is still, higher than it should be given what's happening. I think some of it's like almost unbelievable, and so you think maybe it's just showing off, or remember the first American Carnage speech, inaugural speech in 2016, and then this one was dark and awful. But some people feel that he's come in to clean the stables, and this is what he's doing, and no one that at a certain level has felt it. I have one prediction, which is that the group that's going to turn on him, if there's ever a turn, is going to be business, because they're going to feel it fairly quickly if these tariffs go into place. Uh, and then what happens? I mean, what happens to steel? What happens to car industry? On and on. And maybe those people who rolled over for him, and watching the CEOs, and not just tech, all CEOs throwing money at the inaugural
I
fund.
know. I know. What is going on? I mean,
And that the answer I get from some people is, well, we have to pick our fights, which suggests, oh, there's going to be a bigger fight that you can have later, whether you're going to make more impact. But so you don't care about what's happening now. I would think right now you'd be wanting to throw a punch or two, wouldn't you?
well, I would think so, but I don't know what Chuck Schumer is doing. I don't know what's going on. I don't hear the Democrats coming up with a cohesive answer. And as you say, the Republicans are just falling in line. There's no Mitt Romney anymore. There's no Republican standing up with any principle and saying enough is enough. And being here is not the ultimate goal of a member of Congress. It's doing the right thing. I just don't see it. And I fear that we're not going to see it.
So Mitch McConnell voted against RFK Jr. He didn't bring one person along with him. He was
Why?
he was the majority leader, the minority leader of the Senate. He didn't bring one person along with him. And the only reason he did this one, I don't think, I'm not sure he voted against Hegseth or Gabbard. I know he voted against RFK, uh, is because he had polio. And the shocking thing yesterday, I know I keep saying shocking, but it's shocking. Trump loves to be on camera. He is the most accessible to the press president we may have ever had, because he just loves the attention. So yesterday, he's questioning whether McConnell ever really had polio.
I know. I
Uh,
know. It's cruel.
yeah, yeah. Not everybody's a liar, Donald Trump.
How does he get away? But he gets away with it. I mean, I'm sort of shocked. I maybe yeah, that's the whole point is to shock us into paralysis. But when he came out and attacked McConnell for never having had polio, it was so gratuitous and so unnecessary and so cruel, and yet he gets away with it.
He does. It's astounding. But this is how dictators come to rule, which is the abnormal is allowed to be almost normal, and we get worn down. The opposition is says we're waiting for we're going to pick the right fight, and they don't do anything, and it just erodes and erodes, and then people are stunned. They can't get up off the floor. I'm it's gone so far so fast. Who's going to stop it? I don't see. You say Chuck Schumer is disappointing. He is, and I don't see anybody out there that has more power than Chuck Schumer. Hakeem Jeffries in the House, but he's not doing much either. I just don't know who it's going to be. Do you see it? Do you see somebody coming in on a white horse?
No, no, I don't. And I don't know what they should be doing. And frankly, I don't know what I should be doing. I mean, I write columns twice a week, I do a podcast, but I mean, there's a sense of helplessness right now that people just don't know what to do. I don't think marches are going to do any good. I don't think, one day, if not buying things, is going to do any good. You've got the Jeff Bezoses of the world, sucking up to Donald Trump. I just don't, I've never been, I remember you and I have been around a long time. I remember the Reagan days when, it seemed like the Democratic Party was paralyzed and yet there was some sense of an opposition. This is like nothing I've ever seen.
When you bring up Jeff Bezos, the rolling over of the press has also been very discouraging. Nothing you write, nothing I write, nothing the Post writes, nothing the New York Times. That even if say the Washington Post made a huge crusade now, ignoring Jeff Bezos's cowardice, it doesn't seem to matter to the people who actually have the vote. I don't see anyone in the Senate feeling that there's something they're learning from journalists from the media that's ever going to change their mind. So who are we writing for?
I don't know. It feels like we talk to the chorus. I go on my Facebook feed and all I see are people denouncing Trump. And if I believed my Facebook feed, the whole world would be against Trump. And yet I know that there are other people on social media who are in exactly the opposite balloon that I am and see nothing but praise for Trump and see Trump, you know, truth social media postings as the word of God. I don't know what we do. We don't have a common sort of vocabulary anymore.
If you scroll through X now, it's just frightening what you see because it's very one-sided. There's no monitor. Anything is on there. And there's some deep fakes on there showing things that aren't happening at all. Like fights breaking out and Democrats behaving badly, that sort of thing. It's so X is in its full glory now. Elon Musk is in his full glory. By the way, okay, the kid he has on his shoulders is kind of cute, but it's not cute to take a child into the Oval Office where big decisions are made, where work gets done, where adults have huge responsibilities for the world. And the child is always there. And yet that's how we roll now. Elon Musk can do anything.
Is
And
that going
people
to
who say
last,
and
Margaret? Is he
people
going
who
to lose? I mean, Elon Musk has more money than anyone in the world, and that is why Trump has him around. But is Trump going to get upstaged by Elon Musk? Is he going to keep him around? Is there any hope that there will be a falling out at some point?
Well, there'll be another not as rich Elon Musk who will do a lot of the dirty work. The Elon Musk phenomenon is, he made like $18 million yesterday. Somebody somebody guessed at the amount because of different contracts, different things going on. I don't know how it works, but he has a multitude of contracts with the government, and none of those are being disturbed by his trashing, rampaging through the bureaucracy. Those are all intact. I you know I Someone like Musk is smart, but in a very specific way, and not in a way that expands to be a governing mentality. He just has a kind of quirky genius mentality. It's totally unsuited for government. And I think Trump likes him because he likes the attention that a another billionaire gives to him. They both live for money, apparently. Look at all that Trump has made since he's been
Oh,
in
it's
office.
unbelievable. And he gets away with it. I mean, I remember the old days of common cause and people being held accountable, and he's not accountable for anything. You've got these government contracts that say we're going to buy $400 million of Teslas. I mean, it's nuts.
Armored Teslas at that. He's getting
Armored Teslas.
all of the government armored car contracts. There's something to what you just said, which is now the things that Common Cause would uncover are done in the open.
Right.
It they're not trying to hide it. I would feel better if we had a government which tried to hide the corruption because they knew it was wrong, rather than a government that thrives on corruption and is thrilled to have the power to enrich themselves.
So what do we do, Margaret? I keep coming back to this. I mean, do we just sit and let this happen? I mean, I feel like we are, learned helplessness here. He's
Yeah.
getting away with it, and the Republicans aren't stopping him. And there are plenty of average citizens, that's what I
Doesn't the
consider
Women's March
myself at this point, who don't know what to do.
doesn't the Women's March now seem quaint that
Quaint.
we thought that would make a difference? Like, can you it a march now against this? It's not enough. It's not even in the ballpark of what's happening.
No,
Um, the only thing I can think of is the midterms is to just somehow um, get the Senate back,
but
especially
that's going to be very tough. I mean, it's going to
oh,
be
there are too
very
many
tough.
retirements. It's terrible. And too many,
It's,
you know what? There are too many old people. All the people retiring, well, not Gary Peters from Michigan, but now we expect that maybe Senator Jean Shaheen, who's 78, is going to retire. Tina Smith is on, I don't know how old she is, but old. Let's just say, you know, of retirement age. The Senate somehow got to be an old person's place. It's like assisted living. So, and there are at least four that I know of who are retiring, and those seats are open, and they're not open in places where it's a slam dunk. Maybe Tina Smith in Minnesota. Minnesota's fairly democratic. So, but then it could be way down. I mean, it's bad enough now, and you get Mitch McConnell, and it's not enough to win because Susan Collins has been telling us for years. Every time there's a Supreme Court vote, she dangles her no out in front of us for weeks and weeks, and then she's always a yes. It would be better if she just didn't do that. Just do the wrong thing and do it without making us think, oh, there's a thoughtful Republican who's given all the reasons why she would vote against so and so, but then she doesn't. I'm not listening to her ever again. I'm not gonna be wooed by Susan Collins ever again.
But what do you do? I mean, is she going to lose next time around, or is she going to get, you know, reelected on this bullshit?
Bill Cassidy, one of the great Republicans in the Senate. I should say that in the past tense.
Past tense,
Doctor
definitely.
He's
Tell people who he is because they don't know he's chairman of the Health
he's
Committee.
a doctor from Louisiana. He voted to impeach Donald Trump, and yet he voted to confirm Robert Kennedy Jr. He was the voice on the committee asking the hard questions and seemingly not being convinced by RFK that he was just vaguely a vaccine skeptic and not really one, and that he wasn't going to, he wasn't going to do anything drastic. And then he voted him out of committee, and I thought, well, Bill Cassidy is saying to himself, I owe it to let this go to the full Senate. I don't want to stop it here in committee. It goes to the full Senate, and he votes to confirm him. What happens to a man? I I, I can't. I know that person. What happens? You know, how can you be that afraid of Trump? Now, Bill Cassidy's up in 2016. He already has a primary. Trump threatening to primary him is not as big a threat as he wasn't already being primaried. And the vote will be, the anti-Cassidy vote will be split. He shouldn't have been that afraid. And I don't, by the way, doesn't mean that Trump isn't going to go against him anyway.
Anyway,
Did I
right.
say 2016? I meant 2026.
26.
Time does not fly.
No, it doesn't fly.
Yeah.
So what do you think happened with Cassidy? Because I had great hopes for him in the Kennedy hearings that he was going to stand up, and he had a reputation as somebody with some integrity. Did he just lose it? Did he get scared? Is it? I mean, what do you do? I
There's
keep
a
asking you what you
there's a
do because I don't know what to do.
there's a political industrial complex operating somewhere, and whispering in the ear of every senator who wants to be reelected are the fundraisers, the direct mail, all of those people saying, if you want to do good for another 6 years, you want to be back in the Senate where you can do good, you better do what Trump wants because he can kill you. What else could there be? I mean, think of one other reason. There is no other reason. He certainly didn't get conned by Robert Kennedy. He doesn't even look like a whole person. He doesn't act like a whole person. He's kind of frightening because he does testosterone. It's no secret. I mean, he's ripped, like he's a 70-year-old that looks like Hulk Hogan,
Right.
and he doesn't
He's
speak well,
seriously
and
crazy.
he's had a very checkered past. I don't even have to go through it. I don't want to, but there was no other reason other than fear for Bill Cassidy to vote for RFK.
And this fear is just going to keep on growing because Trump has not been stopped. And there seems to be no way to stop him. I've never felt so helpless in my life politically
Well,
and never felt
particularly,
so dejected. And that's not good. That means he's winning.
he's definitely winning, and he's winning because of fear. And if you go back to January 6th, just very quickly, when Mitch McConnell gave a speech on the floor in which you would think it is now over for Trump. He's gone too far. Then Mitch, and all of the speeches, even Kevin McCarthy's. Then Mitch McConnell says, "You must wait to file a bill of impeachment until uh, the president." I forget what excuse he gave. Something about you have to wait until the next session of Congress. The next session of Congress comes in, and and then McConnell says, "Oh no, you waited too long." It's like Mitch McConnell saying you can't confirm Merrick Garland, and then rushing through Amy Comey Barrett. I think was 7 weeks before the change of presidents. But at that moment, after January 6th, the Republicans could have gotten their party back. It was there for them to take back, and then en masse, they just caved in. They didn't do it. McCarthy, of course, fell in line, and they all did. I wonder if late at night when they're falling asleep, they think of that. Oh, I could have, I would have, I should have. Now they have a monster they cannot control.
Can anybody control him?
No, he doesn't even have a wife that can control him. She's she's she doesn't care. She just wants not to have to be with him that much. Just go be president and let me make my now she I think she's making a movie out of her memoir.
Yeah, like, right.
She too will get rich.
Oh, she's already gotten rich off this memoir. I don't know who's buying it or why, but they are.
You know,
And
it's a coffee table book. You know, every MAGA voter will have this little totem on the coffee table, I guess, because I can't imagine that it's revealing that you get to the heart of who Melania is.
no, of
With the
course not.
heart.
I don't know who Milani is, and I don't begin to understand that kind of a woman. You know, I mean, you and I are just not that kind of breed who makes the deal she's made and lives with that deal.
She didn't seem all that happy in the few times she's appeared with him. I mean, not only once during the campaign, then on inaugural day, but I don't think they have. I don't. I don't think she has to do much. Just show up once in a while. Have you noticed that at Mar-a-Lago how he's always dancing? There are parties every night there, and he fist dance like this, so happily. There's no
Oh,
contrast.
he's a pig in shit right now. He's got everything he wants. He's got everybody afraid. He's making love to Putin. He's sold out Europe. He's doing exactly what he thinks he can do. And maybe he gets away with it. I heard a woman the other day, a friend was telling me about her, saying that she felt safer in the world because everybody knows Trump is in charge and Trump is not going to let people get away with anything. How do you deal with that kind of emotion?
You can't because it's so against the facts. Putin is in charge. If anyone is in charge, he's going to have his way with Ukraine, and then even more emboldened. Imagine what Putin will do, knowing that Trump's not going to do anything about it. And JD Vance at the was it at the Munich Security Conference
Yeah.
or in Paris at some conference in Europe, he scolded Europeans. he they don't care about that alliance. They care about the one with that they're forming with Putin. I mean, they've already given him one of the things he wants, which is not allowing Ukraine into NATO.
Right.
So uh, and and Trump just wants it to be over on any terms, because remember he said on day one
Day
they'll
one, he was going to end the war, and it's
yeah.
day 21 or whatever it is. It seems like a lifetime.
Yeah. And ending the war is a threat on his terms for all of us, because he's going to give Putin what he wants. I mean, he's done it publicly, so he can hardly back off that.
No, of course not. And there's nothing anybody can do about that either, right? I mean, McConnell has said he's worried about foreign policy. What's he going to do about this? Since when do Republicans cave to the Russians?
And it's not going to be something that the Senate has to approve.
Yeah.
It's going to be negotiations where Putin already knows he has the upper hand. What can be done? I don't know what can be done. I fault the Senate for not doing more about the appointments and about what Trump's doing now, but I don't know what they can do about negotiations over ending the Ukraine war.
No, I don't
Oh,
either.
look at all those lives lost. It's for nothing. And I imagine Putin will get territory.
Of course he will. They've said he's going to get territory. They've told Zelensky he's, going to have to give up. I mean, it's unbelievable. And yet there it is. He's doing it and nobody's going to stop him. And Putin hasn't had a good day in 30 years. And now
Now
Trump
he
is
gets
giving
one.
it to him.
He gets a big one. Eastern Europe, finally crossing over Eastern Europe. It's staggering. And you
Yes,
don't know really what does Trump get out of that?
a
Why
sense of
has he
power.
always been soft on Putin?
I don't know, because he likes Putin and Putin likes him, and Putin plays to his ego like a piccolo. I mean, Putin has really played him, and I don't know what he gets.
And dear leader, he even liked dear leader. He likes despots, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah. Well, he connects with them. He relates
And
to
they're
them. He's an
and they're
oligarch.
smarter than he is. They know how to flatter him and get him, but he doesn't know how to get them. They only know
Right.
how to get him. Does he realize he's being had?
No, clearly not. He thinks he's in charge of the game. What do you make of his position on Gaza? I mean, this idea that we're going to take over Gaza and
A
force.
Trump casino. I mean, it's so ludicrous that you you can't believe that Susie Wiles, this chief of staff that's supposed to have disciplined Trump during the campaign, I don't know if she's given up, but you'd think that she would have just grabbed onto his coat sleeve and just not let him go out of the room saying that it's crazy. It's beyond crazy, and it looks trivial, so it reveals how shallow and trivial he is. He's still that guy from Queens caring about the real estate. He
Right,
just sees it as a real estate project.
right. And what's to stop him again? I mean, E- Egypt and Jordan are going to take in all the Palestinians and you're going to move them there. Is that going to happen?
Well, it's his way, I guess, of killing the two-state solution. It's and you know, there are so many things that he's done that would be considered gaffes. Jimmy Carter said malaise, and that was, remember,
That was considered a terrible gaffe, and look at it
terrible,
now. It seems silly.
terrible. And didn't Gerald Ford do something? He called Poland,
Right, right.
yeah, these little things that caused people terrible setbacks. And there's nothing Trump can do that he seems to be ridiculed for.
No, I mean, he's a convicted felon who, is now letting Eric Adams off the hook because he sucked up to Trump. I mean, what do you make of that?
Um, I don't know what they're going to get from each other. I don't know what he's going to get from Eric Adams. Do you? The he he of course seems to want all felons to get off the hook, right?
Felons like
He's
him.
gotten off the hook. Like let's have felon freedom day. And in that way, maybe, the Rod Blagojevich and Eric Adams and all the they all make Trump feel good about himself because they're
Exactly.
all getting a raw deal the way he got a raw deal.
Right. And this is how he gets his revenge for his raw deal is by undermining the integrity of the Justice Department. I mean, that's what he's really doing. He's pushing people who have any integrity out and undermining the entire integrity of our justice system.
And then I think Kash Patel comes up next week. Is that right?
Yep.
For
Yep.
confirmation?
And he's going to go through.
It's like, remember when Trump, it was just a couple months ago, kept insisting Project 2025, he barely knew what that was.
Right.
Now it's his playbook. The Kash Patel has said, he's told us what he's going to do. And the idea that he's standing under oath saying, no, I'm not gonna do those things. What he's denying Project 2025. Of course he's gonna do those things. That's his life's work, is to get revenge like Trump. I wonder if none of them was popular in high school. Like they're still getting revenge because Trump will never truly enjoy this because it's just getting him back to ground zero. It's just that's what revenge does. It gets rid of the thing that you didn't have that was taken from you, but it doesn't get you above it. It doesn't get you ahead. It's the only thing about this that Trump will never really get over his horrible, the things that pull him down, the darkness. but he will have his way for a while, but it's not ever going to make him whole. And this is Kash Patel. He has that same kind of darkness inside of him, and he just wants to get back at people, and he wants to do it by ruining their lives. And Jack Smith, I feel sorry for the guy because they're going to make his. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, Susan. You may know more than I do because you're a better lawyer than I am, but they're going to make his life miserable for what he did, and all of the lawyers who worked for him. And watch Emil Bove, who was at the Justice Department and who was helping the attorneys in the special counsel's office. And now he's turned on them. He's firing them.
Right.
These are his colleagues. These are people he knew. These are people whose side he was on. But now that he's working for Trump, he's turned against them. It's and they've done nothing wrong. They did their jobs. And other attorneys in the office, and not in Jack Smith's office, just at the Department of Justice, just because they were there. Only because they were there, they're being fired.
They're being fired. And nobody's standing up and screaming, and there's no resistance, and they're just gone.
Well, Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General, did, but now he's going to be gone. So it doesn't encourage other people to stand up. You have to be brave to stand up if you know you're going to be shot and killed.
Yeah, and that there's nothing, and that people feel like there's nothing they can do about it. How do we get through the next 2 years, Margaret?
Also, these are people more mid-career. They're not at retirement age,
No,
and they're being told to leave. I mean, imagine if you come into your office and it's locked,
right.
and they bring your stuff downstairs. You know, there was a movie about this that was very, very. It showed that side of it. I can't remember the movie, but George Clooney was in it, so I remember George Clooney. How awful it is, that awful feeling. It's like your home. Your office is your second home, and you're locked out of it. You'll never get in it again, and all your belongings are down in the lobby.
And
That's
you've devoted
happening.
your life to public service. You've given up the opportunity to be in the private sector. There are no jobs to be had in Washington right now.
No,
It's just an impossible situation. And I guess I keep wondering what has to happen to average Americans to get them to stand up and say enough is enough. I mean, do we have to stop getting Social Security checks in the mail? Do we have to see, American citizens sent to Guantanamo because ICE made a mistake? I mean, what happens? What has to happen to make things change? And I don't know the answer.
I don't know how individuals gather together now. Social Security checks would be a thing, wouldn't it? It's
Yeah.
universal. But how do you organize? How do people 65 years and older organize? Does AARP come into play? I don't even picture the opposition, how it makes itself known, and how it is enough to threaten Donald Trump, who thinks he's going to have, by the way, Susan, another term.
I know. In fact, I find that just unbelievable. I mean, he's going to
Yeah,
be
I don't. In a normal world, he wouldn't get through this term. He'd be impeached for sure. He's
right,
doing things that are illegal,
right,
and
right.
and yet, you know, we have three branches of government, but we've let the executive be very strong, and so he's acting like, if a strong man takes that position, given that the executive has a lot of powers and has accrued a lot, but not abuse them. Richard Nixon maybe, but not to this extent. Richard Nixon looks like
Looks
a
like a
public
choir
servant
boy
now.
compared. I mean,
Yeah,
Richard Nixon looks like a moderate Democrat compared to this guy.
I
Richard,
know.
I mean,
And he
bugging the
resigned. I mean,
DNC
it's
is
like
nothing compared
it's
to what
nothing
this
compared
guy
to
is.
what Trump is doing.
Nothing.
No.
And we were
So
shocked.
I don't have an answer. How does the opposition form and make itself a threat to a dictator. You know, the other dictatorships have happened slowly, and it's not until it's too late that people rise up. Will I mean, I'm not even thinking of Germany. I'm thinking of other places. I mean, there's a rightward movement in Europe, and then it gets to be too late. Even the courts are gone over to the side of the executive. I cannot. I you asked that's such a good question. It will be something like Social Security that will finally hit home. It's going to have to be personal,
Right.
but then how does the personal become public?
I don't know. Is there
You're going
anything
to
taking
really,
up a lot of your time? Is there anything hopeful on the horizon?
I was
Anything
going
to
to say
say
we're
to
really
people to give
depressing
them
your
the
listeners.
ability to do something?
I think it's a very it's uncharted territory. I haven't lived through anything like this. I don't I don't have any I don't have any magic potion. I don't have, and I don't even share your confidence in John Roberts because I think
Well,
he's
I don't
folded.
have that much confidence. I have hope.
Hope, yes. I mean, he's folded a couple of times,
He
and
has folded on immunity. He definitely folded, and he's folded to keep his court together. But whether he's going to fold on his entire legacy, and it's a hard one because if he holds Trump's feet to the fire, then the danger is Trump ignores him, and that undermines the rule of law completely. So it's a
oh,
tough one.
it is you don't want to see it happen because when he defies the court,
That's
it's
it,
that's it. Yes, it's all
right?
we have left at the moment. It's what we have. So I hope John Roberts is a better man than he's proved to be these last couple of years.
But if he is and he holds Trump's feet to the fire and Trump ignores him, it's not clear what he does. And it's not clear whether this Congress would ever impeach Donald Trump for disobeying the law and holding himself above the law.
Yeah, I don't. I somehow think that that would defy the court, and then the Senate, even if after this the midterms it's still in the hands of the Republicans, that might move them because that's anarchy.
Right?
That would frighten them.
I hope so. But you would think Robert Kennedy frightened them. You would think Pete
Yeah,
Hegseth
he
frightened them.
frightens me.
You would
I'm
think
not
Tulsi
stockpile
Gabbard
fluoride
frightened them.
and vaccines.
The vaccines.
Oh, and then Trump, just to put icing on the cake, he's now issued an order that COVID vaccines cannot be mandated or something. Like when we have bird flu, you won't have to get a vaccine.
It's just unbelievable. And yet Robert Kennedy vaccinated his own children. I mean, this is, this is really selfish because there are people who can't be vaccinated and there are people with immune disorders. And to not be vaccinated and not have vaccines gets rid of herd immunity, which leaves the most vulnerable people in our society even more vulnerable. And it's just terrifying.
It is terrifying, and the statistics are that it's already begun to happen. The anti-vaccine movement has been successful even without RFK being now in charge of it.
It's awful. Margaret, it's such a pleasure to talk to you, but it's so depressing. And I
I'm
wish
such a
I had,
downer. I
I
apologize.
know. Can we give anything to the people listening that will give them some hope to speak up, to call their congressmen, to call their senators, to try to make a difference, to get involved in politics, not sit it out? I mean, that's
Yeah,
the only answer I can come up with.
remember when something used to happen and the lines on Capitol Hill would get tied up?
Hmm.
So many people calling in because a bridge was or wasn't being built in their district. I haven't heard of the lines being tied up, but I do encourage, I think it matters, especially to House members. Every 2 years they're up, and they want they're more, they're, it's not a state, it's a district, so it has more impact on them when a constituent reacts to what's going on.
Right.
Call your congressman, write a letter. You don't even have to write it, you can just email it. It's
Yeah,
usually
we heard.
at senate.gov or at house.gov, so just put the name of your member in, and it will get there. You don't even have to go get the stamp. It's
That's a
free.
good thought. And keep hope alive. Isn't that what Jesse Jackson used to say?
uh,
Keep hope alive. I named a plant Hope, and I kept her alive. I don't know if I can keep hope alive through this, but we'll do our best.
yeah, buck up.
Buck up and buckle up,
Yeah.
and hope that you can get through it. Margaret, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time. You've been listening to No Holding Back with me, Susan Estrich. I want to take a moment to thank Margaret for her great conversation. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch every episode over on your YouTube channel. Please leave a rating and review. It really helps us reach more people, keep the conversation going, and keep hope alive. Follow us on X at No Holding Back FM, and for my weekly column, visit our website, estrichgolden.com. Thank you so much for listening. Keep hope alive, and I'll see you next time on No Holding Back.